So everyone please welcome Mr. Martin Adams.
Thank you everyone. So, as Joe said, moved from Kent down south 9 months ago up to Grimsby. Since then I've taken my portfolio from zero, and glad to say yesterday I secured my last property to take me to £1 million. So I've scaled from zero to £1 million in 9 months. It's been quite a journey. It's not for the faint-hearted and it's bloody stressful, but it gets easier the more you do it. So I'll go through some of these, a little bit about myself. Like it says on here, been interested in property by the age of 17, 18. Had a family business, plastering and dry lining, and just in the general building trade. So I left school, went and worked for my family business, and thought that that was where I was going to end up, just running that eventually when my dad retired. Didn't plan out that way. Ended up going on my own path and bought my first home residential property in 2019, just before COVID, literally the perfect time to buy a house because they were still cheap. And then renovated that through COVID, and luckily boosted up the value by a huge amount a couple of years later, which was November last year. Then refinanced that, and then that's the money that I used to come up to Grimsby and start my journey. Did get educated, went through the Samuel Leeds programme. Whether you boo or cheer is up to you. It was really good for me. I've met some great people as well while I've been there. So yeah, then moved up to Grimsby just through doing due diligence, went on Rightmove, looked at the cheapest houses, and they were just all in Grimsby, so that's where I went. If I'm being honest, that's how I done it. So this is a little bit older now because I've scaled up a little bit more since this, but I've got recently purchased 2 properties in Grimsby. One of them was as cheap as £38,000. It was for a 3-bed house. Weren't in bad condition. It was a bit of a shithole, but it was a cheap house, so it wasn't too bad. Portfolio was 750. Obviously, that's just gone up a little bit after the deal that I've just secured. We've got a couple of rents in Grimsby. We've got like a small Airbnb portfolio that's slowly but surely thriving. And one of the best things is building up good relationships with estate agents, architects, the council, and just general people that are in the property space, because they will take you further than sort of any other influence, family, friends and stuff like that. If you can really get in with the people that are actively doing that stuff on a day-to-day basis, you'll learn so much quicker. Lucky enough to be invited on a podcast and to speak at events like this, so really grateful for that, and hopefully some of the stuff that I'll tell you today will help you on your journey. Got multiple investors that I work with now, provide hands-off management, building, project management, HMO management. We do investment handling and stuff like that. So I've just started up a cleaning business as well, so we now offer the cleaning. So we're really trying to tailor from start to finish investment service where no one needs to use anyone else apart from me. So this was the first property that I bought back in 2019. And ended up being a HMO in the end after I went on my education and found out that there was more to just standard buy-to-lets. Turned out the property was a really good HMO opportunity. So I went through and done sort of quite a nice renovation during COVID. So yeah, that one they saved. Purchase price was 190k. Refurb was 25k. Done all the work myself during COVID, so that kept the costs down. Just paid for materials really. Got GDV 285k, and it cash flows nearly £3,000 a month. Obviously that's just turnover, not profit, but it still generates about 1,400 quid a month profit, so that's nice. This is one of my most recent projects in Grimsby. So we purchased this property for 60k. It was a builder that purchased the property, had some financial struggles, so we took over the project. We finished off the renovation to 13 grand, and we just had that valued at 110. So that deal was essentially a free house, and I ended up pulling out 13 grand in profit as well. We've now got that on Airbnb, and it makes on average about 2k a month. So it just goes to show sometimes you don't have to have like huge amounts of money invested just to make a small cash flow, and you can then refinance that and do it again and again and again, so you just repeat the process. What would the key things that I'd recommend when starting out in property? As we all know, leverage is your best friend. Like good debt is out there, like credit cards and stuff like that sometimes aren't the right kind of debt that you want when you're buying maybe trainers or makeup or something else, but you can use it for property investments and stuff like that if it's a decent investment. And again, friendships and networking are my biggest passions and why I come to these events, because you never know who you're going to meet. I've met some really good friends, obviously met Joe from doing these kinds of things, and I'm sure that we'll speak at the networking bits afterwards and stuff like that, so if anyone's got any questions, just come find me and I'll help out if I can. Be confident in your due diligence and always keep your numbers conservative. I see so many people, mainly deal sources, sorry for any deal sources here, but some deal sources are sort of conservative with their numbers and they sell you what you want to buy, really. But I will work off of, for example, if it's going to be a 20 grand refurb on a project, I'm going to allow 30 grand just in case. And then if the GDV is going to be, if the end value on the property is going to be 100 grand, I'm going to guess it's going to be 80 grand just in case. And if the numbers still work on that worst case scenario, when it does reach the general value that you think you're going to earn just as much or if not more money. So that's why when people say to me, how can you just say yes or no on the spot, it's because I've already done the numbers in my head, the numbers are already conservative and I already know I'm going to make good money on it. So I just capitalise on that and I make decisions really quickly and usually come out with a really good deal. Yeah, there's no such thing as get rich quick in property. It takes ages. I know I've scaled up quite quickly in 9 months, but it has not been easy. I've done some things that most people wouldn't want to do, sleeping on floors, sleeping in train station car parks because none of my houses are ready to sleep in, lived in Airbnbs. I've had breakfast at Spoons for probably 2 or 3 months in a row because I've got no cooking facilities in houses. Like, I've really done some crazy shit. I've slept on my cleaner's sofa. I've slept on her sofa a few times because I've got nowhere to stay, because I'm just actively trying to purchase as much as I can and do as many renovations as I can at once. But probably not for everyone, but I've done what I had to do to get to where I am. The education is vital. Like I said, people that are here today obviously want to learn, want to do more property investments, and there's some people that are above or further in their journey than others. There's no harm in reaching out, asking questions. In this room, I'm sure no one's going to judge anyone for asking a question, no matter how silly it is. Like, you might think it's a silly question, we're just looking at you thinking, oh, they want to grow, we want to help, you know. So always just be honest about your situation. If you don't understand something, there's no one's going to take the piss out of you. One day or day one, don't be a dreamer, your dreams are closer than you think. So many people have like imposter syndrome and think, I can't do this, or I don't have the money, or I don't know what I'm doing. Like, with this day and age, you've got YouTube, you've got LinkedIn, you've got all these networking events. Like, they cost a little bit of money, like, it's not a fortune, but the actual networking and the value you're going to get from like a £30 networking event like this is more than what you're going to get from dreaming about it and then never actually doing it. So sometimes you just wake up and make it happen, and once that effect happens, it snowballs and snowballs, and then you're the one helping people that were helping you 6 or 8 months ago. I'm not going to do questions just yet because I don't know how long we've got, but I think I've got quite a while. So what I specialise in, I'll tell you guys what I'm sort of specialising in, what I do, and we'll sort of speak about what your guys' situation's in and what you're looking at doing and see if I can help any of you guys. But I basically specialise in project management. If there's anyone that's sort of like wants a HMO or wants a hands-off property investment service, we cater for that. We can then turn it into a high cash flowing asset, whether it be through rent to rent or HMOs and stuff like that. We also help landlords sell their properties efficiently. So sometimes we even buy them over the market value, but just a little bit later on down the line. I don't know if anyone's heard of lease option agreements before. Anyone? Yeah, got a few nods. So lease option agreements are like a really lucrative way to start scaling up a portfolio without actually spending any of your money. So I'll give you a scenario. The property that I've just secured was a 7-bed, 7-ensuite HMO in Grimsby. It was in a really, really bad condition. No one was looking to buy it. It was on the market for £230,000, I think it was, about 2 years ago. And it slowly but surely dwindled all the way down to 200 grand, and he's still getting offers for like 150 grand. So I reached out to the seller and said, like, look, what's your situation? Trying to learn a bit more about him and what his sort of pressure points were and why he was selling it and what his situation was. And I've agreed to buy that property in 7 years for 200 grand. So like, probably a lot of you people think that's crazy and why would he accept that? But what we've done is I've agreed to pay him a fixed amount of rent for the next 7 years. So it's going to be a guaranteed income for him for 7 years. He's not going to have to worry about nothing. And then within those 7 years, I'm going to bring the property back up to a good value and of a good standard. I'll then rent it out as either self-contained Airbnb compartments or a HMO, which is then going to generate me enough cash flow to buy that in 7 years. So he's going to get a guaranteed sale of 200 grand, and I've agreed to pay him £1,000 a month for the next 7 years, which works out to be about 85 grand. So he's going to get 285 grand in 7 years, and he doesn't have to worry about it, and he knows that the property's in good hands. So then when I'm going to rent that out, I'm going to rent it out, if we say it's going to be a HMO, rooms are about £500 a month because they've all got en suites. They're all in reasonably good condition and they're good sizes. So the 500 times 7, 3.5 grand, minus the bills, let's just say it's 1,500 quid. I'm going to passively make £2,000 a month cash flow for the next 7 years, which is going to be sort of not far off, well, probably over £100,000, which I'm then going to use that money as a deposit on the property when I go to buy it. So essentially, I've not put any money into that property deal apart from the renovations that are going to be required, probably £15,000. But in 7 years' time, I'm going to purchase that property for 200,000, even though the market value might be 300,000 because of market appreciation and because it's earning an income. It's a 7-bed, 7-en-suite property. It qualifies for a commercial valuation. So we're going to uplift the value without even really owning it, and it's just a really, really good property investment strategy. So if there's anyone here that sort of thinks I haven't got any money and I can't do it and I won't do it, you just need to sort of learn the right strategies, get educated, speak to people that are doing stuff that are similar to that, and hopefully they'll pull you up and you can learn that sort of strategy as well. HMOs and Airbnbs are always going to be a big thing in the property investment and training space. Everyone's doing them at the moment, and they are sort of like real lucrative cash flow investments. So like we see on the other one here, this HMO was my personal house. I actually grew up in this house before my parents got divorced. I bought it off them because I was unable to make the payments. And then, as you can see, I didn't think when I was younger that I lived in a bad house, and I see this picture and I think, Jesus Christ, like, I was living in that home. No wonder why I didn't have any friends around at the time. But obviously, we went through quite a lot of renovations. I just done it with myself and a couple of mates during COVID, and I like to think it's of quite a good standard. But the thing down south, these rooms rent out for about £800 a room, just because it's down south, it's close to London. It's crazy to think that like houses up here rent for not far off that, probably, well, in Grimsby definitely. But these are a great investment. So I've got this refinanced at the 285 grand. I pulled out a nice chunk of money in my mortgage on this property. I think it's about £700 a month. So by the time I'm paying all my bills, and I'm left with a nice little bit of cash flow that I don't actively have to do anything really. Don't really, it's still a little bit of a headache. There's still management that goes on with these sort of things, but £1,000 a month for not really doing a lot isn't sort of something to shy away from. It's the same as the Airbnbs. I know, has anyone got any Airbnbs in here? Got a few. Not as many as I thought. I thought there'd be loads. But Airbnb, again, is a real lucrative, like anyone heard of rent-to-rents? We've got a few. So, has anyone got any buy-to-let properties at all? Okay, so we've got a few people that have got a few buy-to-lets. Most of you guys are then just looking at getting to property. Who's looking at getting a property that hasn't got a house? Okay. So, who hasn't got the money to buy houses, but wants to buy houses? Right, okay. I'm just trying to work out how I can provide value for you guys. So, if you haven't got the money to buy a house, and you want to start actively earning money from property and leave your job that you're not happy with, you do have the rent-to-rent strategy. So this is where you start up a limited company, put some of your savings in there, go out to estate agents, landlords, speak to your friends, your family, and just say that you're looking to rent properties from people. You're going to rent them in your limited company. My company would rent these houses as a guaranteed rent. So if I'm going to rent your house, I'm going to give you £1,000 a month, and it's a 3-bed house, and I'm going to guarantee you that rent for 3 years. We will then sign a tenancy agreement in my limited company's name, and we will be responsible for all the utilities, all of the rent, and everything in between. And then I will spend, maybe on a 3-bedroom house, I'll probably spend to £4,000, staging it, putting beds in it, putting mirrors in it, and making it so any of you guys could just turn up and live there for however long you wanted to. But I would put that on Airbnb for maybe £120, £130 a night. So the first 10 nights of that month, it was 1,300 quid. That's going to pay for all the rent and all the bills and all the costs that I have to pay you. And then the other 20 nights, whoever does book that is then profit for me. So if we work off of a 75% occupancy, that's 21 days of the month. So £120 times 21, you can make sort of £2,500 per property. If your costs are only £1,300, you can quite easily positively cash flow 1,200 quid per property. And I've got friends that have got over 100 of these properties earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year just because they've scaled it up and they don't own any properties themselves. They're just leveraging other people's properties to then put on Airbnb. Obviously, there are things that you need to make sure that you comply with. Obviously, you have to have someone in the property will have to pay for the home insurance, whether that's, or building insurance, whether it's you or the landlord. They've started bringing in fire regulations as well, so most of the properties should have fire alarms and fire extinguishers in the kitchen and stuff like that. But it is quite unregulated at the moment, so it is a very easy way for some of you guys, if you've got £5 saved up, you can just start renting a property off of someone. Obviously you need to do your due diligence and make sure that the property works in the area, like town centres and close to public transport and close to football stadiums, and like the O2 for example down London is always a good place to have because there's always events on, people are always wanting to stay. And because of the crisis that we've got at the moment with foreign bodies coming into the country and they're all staying in the hotels. So people can't stay in hotels, so they're looking for Airbnbs. So it is quite a lucrative sort of strategy to get into, and it's the same with the HMOs. I know a lot of people frown on the HMOs and say, oh, you're just cramming as many people in these rooms as possible, but there's people out there that sometimes can't afford a full house and they just want a room and they're happy with that. And some people don't want the responsibility of all of that, so we just feel like we're solving a problem really. So it's all just trying to learn about all the different platforms and strategies and networks of property and what suits well with you, because there might be some people here that have got a retirement fund that's got 100 grand or whatever and they want to start buying houses cash. It's not going to work for everyone. Everyone's got a different way of learning, everyone's got a different strategy that they want to do, so it's basically just sort of try and do as much research and education on whatever problem you have, try and find a way to solve it. If you're not making enough money every single month and you're sort of falling behind on your bills or whatever it is, you need something that's going to cash flow, you need something that's going to make you some money. And obviously all of these are very scalable. Like I'm no one special. If I can sort of do okay and slowly grow, all of you guys can do exactly the same. You've got to just take a few risks, you know. Do what feels comfortable. I would never recommend a risk that you can't financially afford to lose. I've seen it loads of times where people get Airbnb properties or HMOs and they can't get guests in or they can't get tenants in, and then they're sat there costing them money and they have to give them back because they didn't do their due diligence or they put the rent up too high and they can't get the tenants in to cover the costs and stuff. So you've really got to learn to do your numbers and make sure that whatever investment you're making, it's like I said, it's always about being conservative. Like with a HMO, I need to be if it's a 5-bed HMO, I need to be breaking even with at least 3 tenants because I can't guarantee it's going to be full all the time. So if I've got 2 tenants that aren't in the property at the time, I still know that I'm paying all of my bills and it's washing its face and it's not actually costing me money. Same with the renovations, like I said before, always get multiple quotes from builders. If you think it's going to cost 50 grand and someone gives you a quote of 50 grand, just don't go and accept it. There might be someone that will do it just as good a job for 40k, there might be someone that does a better job for 60k. It all depends on what your situation is and comes down to networks again, recommendations, talking to people at networking events. I know, Steve, you've got a building company as well, haven't you? So it's, you know, anyone needs any building work, you can go and speak to Steve and say, oh, like, we've got a quote of this, what do you think? Oh no, that's too high, they're taking the mick. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just going in blind and trusting other people, you've got to be confident in your own decision making as well. Has anyone got any questions so far? Go on, mate.
What works there on the rent-to-rent for like multiple occupancy? Because
So,
I guess you rent that, say if it's a 3-bed, and you're renting out for a landlord for £1,000 a month. Are you renting the rooms per room at £120 a room?
No, it'll be the whole house. So you can do, so we do rent to serviced accommodation, which is the Airbnb, and then you can do rent to HMO, which would be the room by room. But if you was doing the room by room, that would just be like a normal monthly tenant agreement. So if I've got a 5-bed house, if Charles has got a 5-bed house, I'm going to rent it off of him for £1,500 a month. That's like almost like £300 a bedroom per month. If I'm renting it out, I need to be making £600 a month per room, but that's not on a nightly basis, so it's on a monthly basis, you know. But with the Airbnbs, that would be on a nightly basis because I might be renting your house for £1,000 a night, a month, but I don't want to stay there for the full month. I just want to stay there for 3 or 4 days. So then that's where the £120 a day comes from.
Right.
But obviously you have to allow for all the Wi-Fi. Like when we have these units set up, we have like all the Wi-Fi, we have sofas, smart TVs, like some people put games consoles in there. We've got like all nice beds. Everything is like toilet roll, everything you need to live in there. All the cook pots, pans, kettles, toasters, the whole lot is there. So when you come in from work and you check into one of my properties, all you have to do is buy food and that's it, and you shower and toothpaste and stuff. It's just like when you go away on holiday, or if you go on a trip and you go and stay in a hotel, you just take a suitcase, and that's everything we need. It's the same that what we offer, but we offer a more like at-home stay. Like when I go to a hotel, if I'm staying in a hotel and I do this kind of stuff, I've just got an ensuite and a bed, that's it, there's nothing else. Whereas what we provide is like open plan living rooms and people can cook and socialise, I mean, and families can go and all stay in the same house, or contract. It's really good for contractors because if you've got like BT, you're doing a large job just round the corner from Lincoln and they want to stay in your property, you've then got 3 people that split that 120 a night, so it's 40 quid a night, you know, and they're getting paid maybe 50 quid a night for their accommodation, so they're keeping a tenner for dinner or whatever, and then they all get to chill together, they all get to watch TV together, and it's just, rather than everyone being in their own hotel rooms.
Works out cheaper for companies then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and obviously it's a lot easier for them to just, because we're going to give them an invoice as well, so they're going to be able to claim that back on their expenses on the same of it. Right, they'd be able to do that at a hotel as well, but they'll be paying 3 lots of £120 a night rather than the £120 a night for the Airbnb house, you know, so they're saving money as well. Is that alright?
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah? Anyone else? Anything about HMOs, buying houses, refurbs, anything at all?
How do you tend to source your properties? Are you doing it through like Rightmove or Zoopla, or are you going to auction?
I must admit I don't like auction. I've had a few not bad experiences, but luckily I didn't purchase the properties. I've sourced properties for investors before, and the auctions, the fees that they charge and the lack of security you've got going forward with that, I'm not confident doing that just yet. So when I source properties, I build up all of my networks around. It's the estate agents that put the properties on Zoopla and Rightmove. So instead of scrolling through the computer, I will just go into the estate agents and say, look, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm looking for. If you find anything, please call me. And then once you do that week after week after week after week in all the estate agents, I end up just going in there and having a coffee, and I don't even want to buy a house. I just see how they're going. What's the market like? Have you sold any houses? Has the rental prices gone up? So I basically just leverage. I don't want to pay someone to do it, so I might as well just use them, because they're getting paid by the main franchise, you know, like they're getting paid by, I don't know, any estate agents up here, like Walden Partners from down south, for example. They've got people that they're paying to actively help investors buy houses. Like I'm not going to pay like a sourcer to go and source me a property, because I am the one that's already got those contacts, you know. So I tell people everywhere. Has that gone off? Hello? I think that's. I guess I'm shouting. So I just basically go into the estate agents and tell everyone what I'm doing, and eventually the word goes out there, and all of a sudden it starts coming in. It starts coming in through emails, Instagram messages and stuff like that, and I don't actively have to look for properties no more, because people know what I'm doing, they know what I want, and I've got the investors. So I spend all of my time getting the investors and working out what they want, and then the estate agents spend all of their time finding me what I need. So they get a nice, quick, easy sale. They haven't got to do loads of viewings. They know exactly what I want. They know how much money I want to spend. And now I've got to a point where
they'll ring me up and say, oh, we've got this 3-bed house, it's in such and such road, it's 60k. And I'll go there and I'll be like, look, it's not 60k, like what we're going to do? Oh, we know they're going to accept 52. So, do you know what I mean? Instantly I've saved £8 grand for the investor, he's happy. I will then take on the property as project management and I will save him some money doing that. And it all just works hand in hand. So really, it's not even about estate agent, it's just about networking and telling everyone what you're doing. Like, you might tell your friends in the pub, oh, I'm looking for a house, and they go, oh, my auntie's just going to sell her house because she's going to move, you know, she'll do you a good price. Cheers, mate.
So it's all about just telling people what you're doing, and leads come from all over the place. Like, I think most of my success has just been by telling people what I'm doing, not trying to get anything out of anyone, just by, do you know what I mean, someone might come up to me and say, oh, I see the logo on the back of your jumper, I've got a house, like, are you looking to buy it? And things like that happen all the time. So just put yourself out there, speak to the right people, but you have to be consistent, because you go in there once and then don't go in there for 2 months, they forget who you are. Like, I quite actively go in there with Krispy Kreme donuts and pastries and croissants and all. So they probably hate me for it, but I go in there and it's a good relationship for them. Like, I've got so many deals from estate agents just by being a normal person. Like, estate agents are just people like me and you, bro, but they're just paid to sell houses, you know, they're just normal people. So I just treat them like normal people. Don't tiptoe around them, don't be afraid to ask bold questions, always haggle as much as you can, like, respectfully, and yeah, you just got to keep on it and it will pay off, mate.
The lease option in Grimsby, have you, so did you secure it for 5 years and then put like £1 down, or how did you secure it, like, initially? How did you put £1 down, £1,000 down, or do you know what did you actually pay up front for that?
Yeah, so for it to be a legally binding contract, there has to be an exchange of finance. So I paid £1 to secure that contract. Obviously there are solicitors' fees. So what happens with a lease option agreement is I've agreed to buy it in 7 years. So if you're the seller and I'm the buyer, or the potential buyer, we'll go through a thing called a heads of terms, which is basically just a mutual agreement between myself and yourself saying it's going to be 7 years, it's going to be 200 grand, I'm going to allow you to do work to the property, you're going to be responsible for all of the property and contents and tenants, blah, 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 blah. Once you've got that heads of terms, that then goes to a solicitor. Solicitor will write that up as a contract where the money will be exchanged to make that a legally binding contract. Once you've got that contract, you can stipulate like a break clause or something like that. So for the first 6 months, I've got that as rent-free for 6 months, so I'm not paying any rent on that for 6 months. But I've put in a 6-month break clause, because if I get to the end of that 6 months and I'm, I don't know, 15 grand into a renovation and I've uncovered a load of bodge jobs and I don't want to take it on anymore, I can just give it back to him and I've lost my 15 grand, but I haven't inherited a big problem, you know. So that's what I say, like calculated risks and stuff. But yeah, you can do some sort of financial exchange. So I can say, look, I'll give you 5 grand now, because you might be in financial stress. So I'll give you 5 grand, and then I can take the property on, and then we can do it that way. Or you can. Do you know what I mean? It's all about what the seller's struggling with. So luckily for me, the investor was just a very wealthy commercial landlord that bought it just to sink some money into it, so it wasn't in his bank. So it just sat there empty for ages. He spent loads of money on the refurb 5 years ago, and it only got tenanted for 2.5 years. So for the other 2.5 years, it's literally just sat there. The window's been cracked open, and it's just full of cobwebs, really.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Well, so in like 7 years, you have the option to pull out, but he cannot.
Correct. So when we do this agreement, my name goes on the title deed to the property. So he is not able to sell that property without me saying so. I always make sure that the lease options are assignable, because you never know what situation you might be in. So like my current company that I'm the director of, the lease option agreement is in that company's name. But if any reason I don't want that company to own that property, I can then start up another company, and then I can then pass that contract over to another company. But it's all about you have to get a really good solicitor that understands this kind of like purchase strategy, because it is very sort of unusual. A lot of people don't even know it exists, and it's a way that hopefully I'm going to scale up my portfolio to the tens of millions, because quite frankly, don't have the money to go and buy them. So if I can buy them in 7 years' time at a larger, inflated, well, a smaller, a lower price, but it's going to be inflated in market appreciation, then everyone wins. But yeah, it's something that definitely, it's a landlord basically that's got a property that ideally isn't in financial stress. So if you've got a guy that bought a property as an investment project 15 years ago and he's had bad tenants and he's not in a rush to sell it, but he doesn't really want to put new tenants in it, they're the ideal people, because you can just say, look, I'm going to give you X amount of money for it every single month, and then I'm going to buy it in 5 years' time or 10 years' time for that amount. And once you've got that contract in place, because it's a lease option agreement, I've got the option to buy it. I don't have, when it comes around to the end of this 7 years, I don't have to buy it. I can just say, oh no, the market's gone even further worse than what it was 7 years ago. Thanks, but no thanks. And all I would have done is I would have just made my money in the 7 years of rental side of things, you know. So that's why it's really important that they're cash flowing every single month, well, as many months before you purchase it as possible. Because the last thing you want to do is spend 7 years just washing your face, and then you go to buy it at the end and you realise that you've agreed to buy it for 200 grand and now it's only worth 160. Because then you can't buy it and you haven't made no money, so really it's a bit of a waste of time. But anything else, Nora?
Sorry, Martin, on the lease of option, suddenly I thought about, you know, every strategy have different ROI and you know what you want, like as an SA 50% break even and stuff like that. For lease option, what's the tip for, you know, if it's a stackable investment?
The best things about like rent to rents and lease options and stuff like that, the best thing that you can do is negotiate as well as you can at the beginning, because that's going to dictate how much money you make on the monthly rate. Like if someone's got a house and they want £1,000 a month, it might be a good deal at £1,000 a month, but if you can get it for £850, you're instantly like a little bit more, there's more chance of you being successful, you know, and making the money. But with the lease options, again, we just work off of worst case scenario, and it all depends on the strategy. Sort of, obviously, we've got the chance to do it as a HMO. Like I said, we're probably going to make about £2 grand a month as a HMO, which is great. But if we do it as an SA, I'm going to spend a little bit more money, but it's got a really big, large communal area, which we could probably turn into a little cinema room and have a pool table and stuff like that. So it's going to cost a little bit of extra money. But if we rent out 7 rooms at 50 quid a night because they're all double rooms, so it might just be a builder or a contractor or a couple or something want to come to the area for 2 or 3 days. If we do 50 quid a night times 7, it's 350 quid, yeah, it is 350 quid a day. If we do that, let's just say in 50% occupancy at 15 nights, it's still going to generate £3,300 a month, and that's only at 50%. At full occupancy, it's going to be well over £6,000–7,000. So it's good to have all of these strategies, and it's really, really nice to know that they exist, but you still need to have multiple exit strategies, because if you're just banking on it being a HMO, what happens if that council bring in Article 4 or something and stops you trading as a HMO, and then all of a sudden you're committed to this monthly payment every single month and your strategy doesn't exist? So you need to make sure that there's always a backup.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Yep.
For rent to rent, I've been calling a few estate agents because you spoke about the power of estate agents. How do you convince them? Because they just don't want to do company lets at all.
They don't. So go in there and show your face, because
Better to go in person.
yeah, because no disrespect, there'll be hundreds of people like you ringing them every single day, and if you can go there and create, Kelly is so good. Kelly is really good at making networks with estate agents. She just goes in there and all of a sudden comes out and goes, oh, I've got 3 deals, and it's just unheard of. But people buy into people, and like, I'm sure you're a wonderful person, and when you go in there and you say, look, this is who I am, I've got this business, are there any 2-bedroom properties in Lincoln City Centre that are struggling to rent out, or they want a quick rental? We're actively looking to put them on Airbnb, or, well, don't quite say that, but say we're going to be using them for serviced accommodation. We provide luxury stays for contractors and people working in healthcare and stuff like that. Sometimes, like I said to the other guy, estate agents are just normal people. They don't actually know property. They know what goes into selling a house, but they don't actually know about property investments and stuff like that sometimes. There are estate agents that do, but they are very few and far between. So sometimes you have to kind of educate them on what you're trying to do so they can understand. And I don't know if Kelly's had the same, but I get estate agents ringing me now saying, oh, we've got a landlord, he's open to a company let, which means that he's happy for my business to then rent it off of him so I can put it on Airbnb. So then I'll go around there, do the numbers, try and work out sort of how much I can afford to pay for it and how much it's going to earn. And then, like I said, building the network. And once you've got one with one estate agent, you can then go and say, oh, well, I've got one with leaders and they're really happy with it. And you can get the Crofts or something to go and ring leaders and say, oh, this lady said that she's got a rent to rent through you or a company let through you. And they'll say, oh, yeah, like she always pays her rent, house conditions really nice, and then, do you know what I mean, it gives them confidence in you. So I always recommend just going into estate agents once or twice a week and not don't push them to give you a property, just try and educate them on what you're doing and why you're doing it and how it can benefit them as well, because the estate agents are probably fed sick of walking people around the same flat day after day after day and no one actually renting it. So if they can just call you up and you can do one viewing and then it's off the market and they know you're going to pay the rent, it's in their best interest to help you as well. Yeah, is that okay? Anyone else? We've got 5 minutes, I think we've got about three minutes. Yeah, we've got 3 minutes, so.
What type of tenants are you having in your serviced accommodation in Grimsby? Are they contractors? Who is it?
It's a variety. So we try and go off of like luxury stays. I don't want to go too much because at the end of the day it's Grimsby. You can't make it that luxurious if I'm honest. But inside, we always make sure the beds are of high quality. We put nice beds in, comfortable pillows, good mattresses, big TVs, really good internet, like nice stuff in the kitchen, coffee machines and stuff like that. So there's no reason why you and your partner and your 2 kids can't stay there, and there's no reason why 4 builders can't stay there. So we open the market to everyone. The people that are staying there at the moment are contractors usually, but we do get people coming because Grimsby does have quite a lot of, as crazy as it is, social life. Like there's a lot that goes on down by the beach, and they have lots of markets and festivals, and the red lines with the aircraft display and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, you might get 200 or 300 people that come to Grimsby and they need places to stay. Like, I'm not going to lie, 2 weeks ago, the 2 Airbnb properties that I've got at the moment didn't have any bookings for 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, I'm about to speak in 2 weeks' time to a load of people and talk about Airbnb, and mine's not booked out. But then yesterday, both of them are fully booked out, and I took £2 grand worth of bookings yesterday. So that's why I say you have to be conservative with your numbers, because if you're banking on 20 days a month, and if you don't get those 20 days, you're not in a good state. If you've got 5 properties that are all doing that, do you know what I mean? You've got to scale it up efficiently but conservatively as well. Like, I'm lucky that most of my properties break even at 10%. So after 30% break even. Sorry. So after 10 days, I'm in profit. So do you know what I mean? It's 3-4 days a week is good for me, and it's not unachievable if you're providing a good service. If you get a large group of contractors from a big franchise like BT or someone, like sometimes even the council will ask to use my properties to house people that are like domestic violence and stuff like that, where they need to flee an emergency situation. So if you get someone like BT that's constantly working in that area, if you've got a good property and you manage to network properly with those tenants and you are the guests and you ask them the right questions, all of a sudden you're not going for Airbnb, because Airbnb takes 16%. Is it 18%, isn't it? 18% of your profit goes to Airbnb. So obviously you've got to take that into consideration as well. And there's a lot of overheads and a lot of costs that people don't quite think about. So we do direct bookings. So if I've got a property that's £100 a night, and for 7 nights I might do a deal for 550 quid. But then by the time Airbnb take their 18%, I'm then down to 475 or something. So it's a lot easier for you to just message me and say, oh, is your property still available? And I can charge you 500 quid and I get that whole 500 quid, you know. So the direct bookings are really powerful as well, and that again just comes through networking. Go into the hotels, find out what vans are in the hotels, and do you know what I mean, just leave like flyers on there and that. But that's my time up, but I appreciate everyone for listening. Hopefully you've learned something.